Is your commercial photography income seasonal? Wedding photographer Nick Church reveals the reality and huge potential of offering photography education.
Welcome to Commercial Photographer, your guide to marketing, creativity, and growth. This is a podcast that helps commercial, brand, and headshot photographers navigate the competitive world of commercial photography with actionable strategies to grow your business.
Hello, Marcus. How are you doing?
I am terrific, Sam. Thank you very much. How are you?
Excellent. Very good. And we've got a guest today, Marcus. Very exciting. So we have with us today Nick Church from the Nick Church Creative Academy and Nick Church Photography. Hi, Nick. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Yeah, chilly good morning to you both.
Today, we have photographer and educator Nick Church with us to help us explore how photography education can be the perfect tool for photography business growth. First, we ask the big question. Is the promise of recurring income a myth? And how much marketing work does a course really require? Secondly, we reveal the secret to converting interest into sales and showing you why certain types of marketing content work while expensive ads can fail. And finally, you'll discover the simple branding overlap that allows you to market your new courses directly to your existing commercial photography clients and network.
A chilly good morning to you. We've both got the same weather. In fact, Sam, you've got the same weather because you're not in Mozambique today.
That's it. I'm in the Netherlands today. So yes, I think I'm sharing the British weather. Sunshine. I had to scrape the car, which I'd forgotten how to do virtually. It was a bit of a shock when I got in this morning.
No, when I was in Amsterdam years ago, and it was this time of year, it was freezing. People were skating to work along the canals. It was great.
Wow.
Okay,
Cool.
so Nick,
Right.
obviously our listeners know you probably more for your wedding photography, but we're not going to dive into that today. We're going to talk more about your education side and why photography education might be a good side hustle for photographers out there.
Cool. Do you want to
Okay.
give us a brief overview as a start, maybe, Nick, about what you do? That could be a good place to start, couldn't it, Marcus?
Yeah, well, I think my route into photography, I think, Marcus probably has heard this when I checked him before. It was quite late in life. I had a second career, so I started photography pretty late, complete by accident, in fact, and had photography as a side gig for a while alongside like a corporate software job. And because of all the business development stuff I'd done in my proper job, then I was able to build this business very quickly. And I think that was the entry point into education, because going on podcasts and things talking about that, I had people contact me asking if, I would coach them to do a similar sort of thing. So I've always had that running alongside. And I really love that balance of teaching and doing the photography itself. It's just a nice kind of balance. So I've always done sort of in-person education on, typically with professionals. So Flash is always a very popular one. Wedding photography masterclass is very popular as well. But also, as we all know, a lot of creatives, we're dreadful at selling ourselves, and so the business coaching stuff is always there as well. This year's been a change in that I've always had this plan to have more online stuff. Now, going through COVID, I did more Zoom coaching. Yeah. And it occurred to me that there's an opportunity here to do more online content. So I've created the Nick Church Creative Academy, which is a whole new platform, which still does my one-to-one mentoring and that kind of thing, and in-person courses, but it adds more formal mentorships and also online courses on Lightroom, photography, and Photoshop as well. So so that's in its kind of growth stage, and now that weddings are kind of out the way this year, that's now a big focus for me for the next sort of 6 months or so, is to really grow that and push that forwards.
I mean, I guess that's a real advantage, and the work that you do, the wedding photography, it is fairly seasonal, so that does give you a great thing to focus on during the downtime.
Yeah, it's always been a nice kind of way just to, as a business owner, anything you can do to flatten those peaks of crushing amounts of work that just obliterates all family life and personal life and fitness and everything else, and try and sort of even it out. So I do that a little bit with commercial photography. So I do some of that as well. And the training stuff is something that I try to sort of focus it in the downside time from weddings, like this time of year. But inevitably, as most of us probably find, if you get an inquiry in the middle of summer for training, I don't turn it down. So I just end up doing two loads of stuff at the same time. So it hasn't fixed that problem, but it does mean that I carry on being pretty busy through the rest of the year.
And then the training you're doing for professional photographers and for amateurs as well. You're doing those two different sides.
Yeah, it's a bit of both, really. The online courses, unlike a one-to-one where you can sort of have a chat with people and see where they are, so you start at the right level, you don't get the opportunity with online courses. So they do start assuming that someone's got some kit, a passion to improve their photography, but other than that, they may be shooting in auto mode, whatever. But it then does go on through to advanced photography as well. So it's turned into a much bigger project than I imagined it ever would be, and it's a very in-depth course. And it's like anything, you want it to be as good as possible, and that's taking a lot more time than I anticipated to make sure that the quality is there. Just because I don't want to do it again, I want to do this, get this content right once, and then it's there for anyone to sort of dip in as they need, and people can start it and stop it, and it's all at their own pace. So I want the content to be there. Lightroom have stitched me up because they changed the interface a couple of weeks ago.
No.
So that's
the videos, and then everything's changed.
Oh yes, yeah.
I was just thinking when you were talking there, Nick, about maybe some of our listeners might be thinking about getting the teaching, but they might think, oh gosh, I've been doing photography that long. But I think there's quite an advantage coming into the teaching game when you are new to it, because I'm a bass player and I've been playing bass for like nearly 50 years. And I would find it really difficult to teach somebody bass these days, even though I used to do it, because I just can't remember how I did it.
Exactly. Exactly right. Because you remember, if you've not been doing it for years, for 30 years, you can remember what it was like when you didn't know how to do something. You remember the techniques that you used to pick things up. And I absolutely agree. And I think that's why I have got us to my benefit. In fact, the things that I haven't got is 30 years of photography experience. But what I have got is I can remember when I couldn't do a bloody thing, and I had to teach myself from the ground up. And so that's all the stuff that I put into these courses, and it's still relatively fresh despite my cognitive decline of reaching older age. It's still there somewhere.
Yeah. And of course, the fact that we are now in the digital age with photography, it's a lot easier to teach it, isn't it?
Yeah, and certainly being able to do things remotely and that kind of thing is because the problem with that anyone that goes into education will find is if you're doing in-person stuff, you either do it for one person and that's fine, but then you've got to charge a fortune because you're giving up a day of work, or you have to do a group, and then it's the whole marketing of trying to get enough people in to make that whole thing work for everybody, and that is tough, and that takes a long time.
Well, with that cue, let's dig into the marketing side a little bit more, Sam, and maybe you've got some questions for Nick about this.
So did you start just building a digital course, or have you started first in training one-to-one in groups and then moved on to that?
Yeah, well, I started one-to-one and have over the years built up and I have done groups as well. So I've got a small studio here just outside Bristol. So I've ended up with a big list of contacts of existing clients. What I knew I had to do, because the platform that these courses are delivered on, the online courses, is really expensive. It's like $2,000 a year for the platform. So I didn't want to just buy that and then start building. I had to make sure I did as much stuff as possible beforehand. So for the last year or so, I've been building a contacts list in my photography website. So I've got an education area in there as well, which I've always used, so that I can at least hit the ground running with a good number of people. And that's made it much more cost effective, because it means that there's people there that were waiting for the courses to drop, which they now have, and then they've gone on and booked them.
There's this legend that I think we really need to get people in the ground and a bit reality. There's this legend that, it's recurring income. I've made a course. I now put my feet up, do nothing at all, and the money just pours in. And there's lots of people on LinkedIn and Facebook telling you this is the case. But we were talking about whether language is allowed on this podcast. That's just a load of crap, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, totally. It is total crap, because, and I've got proof of this, because there was a period where in the summer I was able to do quite a lot of social media, podcasts, and just Google ads and all these other things. To courses were selling really well. In the last couple of months, that stopped. I thought, right, I'm going to park that because I'm going to come back to it like now. And as I've done that, the sales have completely dropped off. So it's absolute proof that unless you're really working it hard, you've got to, you're going to stop getting income. It's the same that I hear from people that they may be photographers, commercial photographers, wedding photographers, and they think, we want to retire at some point, we want to stop doing that or move into something else. And they're worried that, how will I stop all these inquiries coming in? And they go, oh, right, yeah, that's not a problem. You stop posting, you stop social media interaction, the bookings drop off a cliff immediately. It is a full-time thing to do, really. And that's the problem I've got, is I end up with 2 full-time jobs.
Share with us, how are you marketing the courses? What are you doing, and what are you finding is working?
I'm finding that authentic interaction is always going to be better. I mean, I did run some ads, so I have done some Google ads, and they were moderately successful. Definitely in terms of sign-ups. So it was good for that, but it didn't work well for conversions. And I think that's because all you can do if you're going to do that convert type post, with a very strong call to action for, here's some stuff about a course, now go click here to buy it. You just, however much you dress it up to say, this is genuinely the best course that I've seen, I've researched the whole market. Yeah. That's what everyone says. So you don't stand out from it. So you need to have more authentic interaction and a bit of social proof. And I'm finding that a lot more successful. And also those kind of just awareness type post, doing something a bit more satirical or something not really even photography related, where you're just getting more engagement. That's pretty good as well.
Excellent. So you're finding interestingly those Google ads were getting you visitors, and then presumably what you've got is, like many people do, the free sign up, try a bit of the course, and then you pay. So you were getting what we've had referred to on here before as the tire kickers, the ones who come along, give it a try, but they're never going to buy.
What I found works really well is lead magnets. So I have got a couple of really quite valuable PDFs that I've created. One for beginners on manual mode. Manual mode isn't that common. It's very logical how you use manual mode. Describing that. Yes. There's so much stuff in Facebook groups where it's just plain wrong. And of course, if you don't know what's right or wrong. So you just take random
or overcomplicate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I thought let's do that. That's been really successful in a way to people come in, they grab that PDF. They leave their contact details as payment for it, and go into my workflow and my kind of email sequence and stuff, so they get to learn more about the academy, because that was what I was distributing with Facebook and Meta ads as well, and it worked great for getting people to do that, to go and get the PDF, and a few did go through and buy stuff. You're looking at, typically for things like online course content, 1 or 2% is very typical to actually go through and buy stuff. So you've got to be reaching really big numbers, and that is really expensive. And so if your courses aren't that expensive, which mine aren't, then you end up spending more in marketing costs than you are actually in getting the course sold. Yeah, it's a tough one, but that those lead magnets have been pretty good, and that is definitely. But that's where I see a lot of tire kickers. People think, "Oh, thanks for that. That's great."
Yeah. And then
that's the end of it.
Yeah. You follow up those lead magnets then with an email series, do you? Kind of, they get what, 5 emails?
Exactly.
Kind of sell it eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So a bit more content, a bit more of my background, showing the benefits of signing up to the academy, which is free. It's a one-click thing to sign up, and you get free content, and there's community there and everything. You get a few more percent that do that, but not, probably 20% do that. And it is that there's no cost to them. It's literally one click. So I think people are very resistant because they're being bombarded all the time. You have got to stand out. And what I'll be doing over this next couple of months is trying to use the people that have signed up and start being a bit more focused about giving them content, giving them stuff. I think you've got to give stuff to get to do anything. And
you've got your own podcast. What's the name of that?
It's the Photography Pod.
Dig a little bit deeper into this. So you're offering a package for beginners and package also for more seasoned professionals, wedding photographers in particular. Was that a conscious decision you did, or was that just something that's happened organic, doing 2 different markets?
Well, it's just that, that's the areas that I find are most receptive and most in need of a bit of guidance.
That's where the work is.
Ultimately. Loads of beginners are more than happy to go through YouTube and just pick and choose the bits that they think is relevant, and some aren't, and some need more structure, and they need a bit more guidance about, right, do this first. Let's get that bit, let's have that lesson understood completely, then you can move on to the next one, because they don't know what to search for. They don't know how to search for different focus modes because they don't know the terminology, so they would never know to find that. And
so almost these are people who are kind of feeling overwhelmed because there's YouTube videos telling them this, YouTube telling them this, telling them about Aperture, YouTube telling them about everything else, and it's too much at once, while they really need someone to go, right, let's just do
Oh, it is too much.
Yeah.
I mean, most of my beginners come to me and they're just completely confused, understandably so. And yet, just to shoot in manual is really quite straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I do a one-to-one course where someone comes in, is within 4 hours, we've gone through exactly how your camera works, how all the different focus modes work, and all the different exposure modes work. And they may have come in shooting on auto, and they'll leave shooting on manual, and it'd be slow to start with. But you only get quick at using manual mode if you use manual mode, and then it does become muscle memory, doesn't it? So you're walking out of a room and you're already changing the shutter speed because you know you're going to need it when you get outside. And that other market segment of professionals, I think there's 2 types of professional photographers. There's those that just feel that they've nailed it, they've completed photography and they've got nothing more to learn, and those that are, and I always try to be in the second group of thinking, right, what do I now need to work on to improve, to keep that relentless improvement, to get better. And often that's an area where people think, oh, my flash is a bit crap, but I could probably do with a bit more instruction on that area. And I don't proclaim to be the world's best photographer or the world's best lighting expert, but I can teach those skills that make people that could well be the world's best photographer, just to fill those little gaps of knowledge. And everything we do as a business is time, isn't it? You could take a week off and learn Flash. But if you can then pay for a day of training where someone just teaches you how to do it, then you're actually saving quite a lot of money to do that way. And with education being an allowable expense, then it's a bit of a no-brainer, really.
If we're going to think about our listeners, and if we've got some professional photographers out there who are thinking, this could work for me, kind of add a string to my bow, add a different income stream to my business, You got a recommendation for kind of a good place to dip their toe in to start, give kind of the education route a go?
Certainly early on, a lot of the education clients I had was people that I was working with for photography. So there's a couple of people that came that were interested in landscape photography that I shot their wedding, and I said, well, I could teach you a bit more about that if you want to. And so they came along. And if it's corporate commercial type photography you do, then a lot of these businesses have marketing departments that they're not going to be able to, they haven't got the kit or the knowledge to go and shoot like a really big event, but there's loads of photography they could do if they had a few more skills. And they're often the ones that say, would you be able to teach us to use our camera? A lot of marketing departments buy a couple of DSLRs for the team without any clue how to use it. So
that's really interesting, because you've just tipped my whole thing on my head, because I was just thinking, well, if we're going to talk about this, the next thing you're going to talk about was surely your email list and your marketing list are going to be totally different, because they're totally different clients, where you just like tipped that whole thing and said, no, actually, people who are getting photography are actually lots, not all of them, but quite a bit of them are interested.
Yeah, and I think that's right, Sam. I think it depends on your branding and how your messaging is. And my branding for wedding photography is about, I am passionate about photography. I'm passionate about art. I like to use light. I'm not just rocking up, taking some pictures, and doing it really cheap. So I'm not very cheap, and that does seem to attract couples that are keen on photography, and often professional photographers themselves.
Okay.
So there is more of an overlap probably in that kind of branding that I do.
You think if you do cheap and cheerful weddings, you wouldn't get that interest?
There'll be some, but probably fewer than someone that's sort of curated around loads of photographers, and they love that particular style. Because for most couples, all of our photography looks pretty similar, doesn't it? Because it just looks like professional photography. So those that are prepared to pay a bit more tend to be a bit more fussy about what they're looking for and have a bit more knowledge, because there's no point if you've got no interest in photography and they all look the same. There's no point in spending $2,500 on wedding photography. It wouldn't make sense. That's why I've got a bit more of an overlap there. But every human has generally got a job, got a network of potential commercial photography clients. They've got friends and family that they'll know. Every person will know somebody that's keen on photography, that's just starting photography. So that network is there. They're just people, and you've already done that. The initial thing about building trust within those people. So they're a pretty warm group there. Even if they're not them themselves, they'll be recommending you to other people. So that can work really well.
Your existing business is helping you go.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
About training for the trainers, what do you think about? Have you taken any teaching courses or anything like that, Nick?
I haven't taken formal teaching in it, but I have got. There's people in my network that are educators, and so I've had a lot of input from them, because it's something that I hadn't done before. What I had in my old job was I did a lot of like speaking and talking at events and things like that. So I am much better able to do that. It's not something that came naturally to me at all. I can remember the first time I did it, and I was a sweating wreck, literally unable to remember my name even. And so breaking through all of that was really helpful as well. So if I hadn't had that experience as a background, I would definitely be looking for a way to just be able to stand up in front of people, because ultimately you have to do that, whether it's on camera or in person. It's a similar sort of feeling, isn't it? Your adrenaline goes up a bit, and be able to deal with that and keep the information flowing is really useful. Yes. And the techniques around, if you know your topic inside out, then the idea of talking about it is actually really easy, because even if you forget what you're saying, you've got so much to draw. And like a stand-up comic with loads of material is going to be able to pretty much stand up anywhere and do it, whereas somebody starting out would be reading their hand of notes, So overcoming those was something that I found really important. I would definitely advise someone does that.
And you mentioned speaking, and just as we're coming up to wrapping the show up, you have got a speaking gig coming up.
Yeah, I'm talking at the Society's convention in London in January, on the 14th of January. And I think the photography show next year. They're just finalising the speaker lineup.
I'm on the last day. I don't know which one's.
Well, you're the headline act then, so I'll warm the crowd up. But that talk is all about kind of what we've been talking about, which is having an existing business and starting something else, and having that run alongside. How do you free up enough time to do that new thing effectively without getting into that horrible, what I call the death zone, which is the title of the talk, where you haven't got enough time to do the new thing effectively. And also, if you do put more time in, you actually start to sacrifice the quality and the time you're putting into that other stuff. Businesses don't tend to just come along at the right level. It'd be great if we got an inquiry for education that was just once a week. But it's not like that. It'll either escalate to a level that you can't handle, or just die to zero. probably the latter, and if you're not putting enough energy.
It is an all or nothing business, isn't it? This photography, there's no doubt about it.
I think that's irrelevant to anything, Marcus. Anything you do like that, you're doing the marketing, the leads can come in or they fail. That's not at all unique to photography. That's in any business.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think without going in too much in depth, but I was working with a video crew last night, and we were both in the same job. They've got 3 days work out of it. I got 1 evening's work out of it. So now that evening is done. I need to go and find some more work. Well, they've got 3 days of work. So that's why you don't get that. That's why it happens having photography.
It's marketing, Marcus. You get the leads in and you fill it up, and it's the same whether you're making websites, you're taking pictures, you're doing video, whatever it is. It's getting the leads in and filling up your slots.
And the problem with education, of course, is that when you get somebody that says, I'd really like to teach with Lightroom, I'm struggling with it. Maybe in your network of photographers, you say, well, I'll teach you to do that. Then the first time you do it, you could think, right, I've got to create some content. And that's a couple of days work to do that before the actual thing. So that can also be something that can sort of, be a bit of a surprise, the amount of preparation you need to do. Yeah. But of course, once you've done that once, the next time it's done. is then fine. But if you are doing as a side gig, the next one is about Flash, do you think, I've got to do that Flash one? So you've got to do enough of them to get the repeat kind of benefit of having created the content already.
Perfect. Cool. I think that's a great point to end. That was an incredibly practical show, Nick. It's clear that offering photography education isn't passive, but is a powerful tool for photography business growth. So let's just recap the 3 core lessons that we have learned. Firstly, we busted the recurring income myth, understanding that a course requires constant, focused marketing to generate sales. Second, we learned that the key to converting leads is focusing on authentic interactions and high-value content over expensive generic ads. And finally, we discovered the power of the overlap, using your existing commercial photography branding and network to effortlessly find your first education clients.
And don't forget that you can get for free the Commercial Photographer Guide to Creativity and Marketing. After all, that's what this show is all about. To get your free download, all you need to do is go to our website at commercial-photographer-podcast.com/creativity. Let me do that one again. commercial-photographer-podcast.com/creativity. And from there, you can get your free guide from us to marketing and creativity. Thank you so much, Nick, for being with us. Loads and loads for our listeners to take away. Think about whether they want to go into education, or think about whether they need to visit your academy and hop on a course. Where can they find that if they are interested?
That's www.nickchurchcreativeacademy.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nick. And Marcus, I'll see you next week.
See you next week, and thank you very much, Nick.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. If you want to make sure you never miss a show, head to the website commercial-photographer-podcast.com and sign up to the newsletter. We'll be back next week with more practical advice to help you grow your business. See you next time.